Thank you so much for joining me on This is Spokane, a new periodic and hopefully eventually weekly Spokast show. On it, I will be sharing the good news and great vibes coming out of the Lilac City. I also like to thank my friend Jinx Universe for letting me use his song Alive as the intro. You can listen to that song and his entire catalog wherever you listen to music. Enjoy the show.
Gentlemen, I'd like to introduce myself. Can't take that 9 to 5, but I still look good in a suit and tie. I feel so alive, couldn't kill my vibe even if you tried. We're just boys and girls, trying to change the whole wide world. We'll keep breaking rules, me and my friends, these crazy fools. Cause hey, we're just trying to paint the town tonight. Hey, we ain't coloring inside of the lines. Hey, we're just trying to live our lives. Trying to live our lives. I'm so alive. I'm so alive. I'm so alive.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Lilac City listeners of Spokast. That was my friend Jinx Universe, his song Alive. I freaking love that song. It gives me so much inspiration, and it really is the vibe that I like to set for every day. I just want to feel alive and be with people that want to be alive and just experience the world in an eyes open way. And that is why I'm starting a new periodic Spokast show. This is Spokane. And on this show, I'm going to share Spokane's energy and its great news that is coming out of it. It's going to be hosted by me, and we're going to just dive into the heart of this city's stories. Because did you know this? According to US News, Spokane ranks number 25 on their list of fastest growing places in the United States. In 1990, 360,000 people lived in Spokane County, and today there is an estimated 558,000 people in the county. And with that growth comes a wealth of stories that many people still don't know about. And despite Spokane's flaws, which is true for any rapidly expanding city in America, on this show, I want to share my perspective, Brennan's perspective, on the fascinating tales emerging from Spokane. Like, I bet you didn't know that Alive from my friend Jinx Universe was featured on Cricket Mobile's national ad campaign about 10 years ago. And that's huge. Like, that was a national campaign that we all saw and heard for a number of years and did not probably know that that song came from a person that was living right here in Spokane, Washington. It's freaking crazy. And that's what I want to expose on this show, is all the great things that is coming out of Spokane. And like I said, all cities have their problem, and I'm very much like, I like to be positive and not negative about things. And there's a lot of negativity in Spokane. That's not going to be this podcast. This podcast is going to be all about the positive and good things coming out of it. And it's starting today. This is the first episode. I wanted to do this about 3 weeks ago. Just didn't have a bunch of time. And it's also just been a crazy 2 weeks. And that's where we're going to start. But over the episode, I'm going to talk about a couple of things. I'm going to talk about the Inlanders Best of Awards. I'm going to talk about going down to Boise for Treefort. I'm going to talk about my new Spokane Sounds 2024 playlist, and a little bit about the Spokane Velocity, Spokane's new USL 1 soccer team. So we're going to get into all that in this. Like I said, it's been crazy 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, I was in Boise for Treefort, which was awesome. And then last week was the Inlanders Best of Awards, and I won for Best Local Podcast, which was very exciting. And I also just went on spring break to Ocean Shores and went to Seattle, went to a Mariners game. And yeah, it's just been a little bit crazy in Brennan's world. But let's get into it. Let's start with the Inlanders Best of. I got to say thank you to all the readers and voters of the awards. I'm humbled. I don't really have a lot of words for it, just because I'm blown away, and I'm grateful, and especially for the readers and the Spokane community for voting Spokast as Best Local Podcast in this year's Best of Awards. It really means everything, and I really just want to extend my biggest thank you from the bottom of my heart. And this really isn't just a win for me or for Spokast. It's a win for our entire community. It's a testament to all the incredible stories that are shared on Spokast, the guests that I've had the privilege to interview, and really just what I think is the boundless energy of Spokane. So thank you for listening to the podcast and being a part of our journey. And I want to just keep on celebrating Spokane together. And that's kind of why I'm bringing this podcast with you. It's really a love letter to Spokane, and there needs to be a lot more love letters to Spokane. It doesn't need to just be me. And that's why, I would say anyone who wants to come and make a podcast here and talk about what they're doing here is more than welcome, because that's, ultimately I'm a podcast studio where people can come and record and tell their stories, but I also want to tell people stories who don't, always have time to like create a podcast. And I think the Inlanders Best of is a great way to find those really unique pieces of Spokane that are kind of unheralded or are not talked about that much, because it's an issue that comes out once a year. You go through it, you read it, and what you do with that is like, do you go and support those businesses now? Like, or do you want to support others? Like, that's the great thing about Spokane, is that we have the ability to support whoever we want. And the Inlander just gives us a way to highlight some of the businesses and people that are doing remarkable things in the city. And I thank them, the Inlander, for doing that. It's a magazine that I've read for years, since I was old enough to go find one in a stand. And I tell a lot of that story on my interview I did with arts and culture editor Shay Scott. And go listen to that episode, because it kind of goes over her history of how she became the arts and culture editor. And we also talk about the history of the Inlander and the history of a little bit of the best of and some of the award winners. And again, thank you to the Inlander, its readers, and thank you to Shay Scott for coming on and being on the podcast to talk about all those things. So again, humbled, and thank you again. Next thing I want to talk about is I went down to Treefort. Treefort is a music festival, or maybe I should say an arts and music festival down in Boise, Idaho. It is a 5-day experience, goes from a Wednesday to Sunday. It is a long ass event. Like, a lot of festivals in the world, there's not many 5-day festivals, but there's a lot of other pieces of it that are more arts oriented or creative oriented. But there's always music going on. They kind of take over their main park, kind of like a riverfront park here in Spokane, but they have like a big main stage. You have 2 other supporting stages there, and then they break out into the rest of the city and go to other like venues and have shows there as well. The closest thing that Spokane has ever had to a Treefort is Volume. Volume was the Inlanders Music Festival. The last one that was staged was back in 2019. I believe the 2020 version might have been canceled due to COVID, or maybe it had just never gotten to the process of even planning because of COVID. But it was a 2-day event, usually happened at the end of May, and was just a lineup of music happening at multiple venues in Spokane, mostly bars, and I think mostly just bars. Like, oh, here we go. They had Baby Bar, Berserk was one of them, Lucky You Lounge, Now the Chameleon, Mootsie's, 9, Red Room Lounge, River City Brewing, The Big Dipper, The Pen, Washington Cracker Building. But yeah, it was just a bunch of local music. Some acts came from out of town, I believe. It was just a 2-day festival, and it was great. Point being is that Treefort down in Boise is much bigger than what Volume was. And it is just a ton of stuff is happening during the entire weekend. And I was asked to come down. My friend Matt Bogue with Houdini Interactive, he had some extra passes and asked if I could come down and take it in and experience it and kind of post about it, which I did a little bit of that. But really, I just got to go down and I got to see some local bands, got to see Matt Bogue's band, Got You, got to see Jang the Goon and Top, got to see Itchy Kitty. I think there was a couple of other local bands I didn't have a chance to see, but then I got to see another regional rapper, Oblay Reed, who's from Seattle. He's a young guy who is just killing it in the hip hop game. Go check out Oblay Reed on Spotify. His sound is great. I just love him. And then I got the chance of a lifetime for me. Something I've always wanted to do is see Mark Maron, my favorite comedian, perform live. And he was there at Treefort performing at the Egyptian Theater. And oh my God, he was amazing. He did 2 hours of like this brand new material. And for those who don't know, Mark Maron also has a podcast called WTF that he's been doing since like 2008 or 9 or 10, something like that, right around the start of when podcasting was just a brand new thing. I found him out just by listening to his podcast, and it's been a podcast that I've listened to since then. And it is why I am podcasting, is because I love that podcast so much. And eventually I was like, I want to do podcasts like Mark Maron, interviewing people. And that's kind of what has transformed into Spokast. Also was discovered a folk singer, Dean Johnson, also from Seattle. He's a singer-songwriter, and his sound is so unique. It's folk, but it has so much heart and so much amazing storytelling. I fell in love with him, and I got to thank Carly Fairbanks and Micah Clay Lubin for introducing me to him, because they're like, we just had finished watching Gonzaga win against McNeese State, and they're like, we got to go see this guy, Dean Johnson. I'm like, okay, let's go. And so I went with him, and I fell in love. And you should definitely go check out Dean Johnson on Spotify as well. But Treefort was it's a vibe. It's very, very, like I said, it's a lot going on. One complaint I will say is I didn't find there being a ton of diversity in music genres that were there. It was a lot of alt rock and not a lot of, the genres I like. I mean, I love R&B, hip hop, and that was sprinkled throughout the event. But I should just go to a hip hop festival that's more dedicated to that, because like that, obviously, like they're catering to a certain demographic, and I don't know if I'm that demographic, but they had a great lineup, and I got to see a bunch of different acts, and there's always something going on. But the question I pose is, does Spokane need a Treefort? Do we need a 5-day, 3-day, or even 2-day festival here in Spokane? My quick answer is yes. We definitely need that. We need to be able to have a multi-day festival in Spokane where we can see local acts and have it be very much a draw for new people to come experience venues and places in Spokane. Does it need to be as big as Treefort? Well, maybe in like 10 or 15 years, like how long Treefort's been around. But yes, I think it needs to start small. And I think we need to have something like Volume come back and have more arts pieces of it as well. I think we need to do an immersion of all those things into like a 2 or 3 day festival. But we have a lot of that going on still. We have Terrain, obviously. That's just a 1-day event, but we have the opportunity to do these things typically every month. There's something that we can go experience in Spokane, but I would love to have just like a amalgamation of all of it over 3 days, but that's just going to take a ton of infrastructure to make happen, and big sponsors, and just a bigger force than just a couple of people. But I think we can get there, and I'd love to see us bring in, bigger acts. We definitely have the venues for it now. We definitely have the park for it now. I mean, we have a built-in stage right there in the pavilion. It and then we have so much around it. But like, I think we could do something outside. I think it could be something that maybe happens in like between Bloomsday and Hoop Fest. Like, I think that might be a good time to do it, because I think doing it too later in the summer would be too hot. And I think sometime maybe like at the end of the school year would be a great time to do a Treefort-esque festival here in Spokane. But there's it would take so many people. So I don't know if I really answered your question. I mean, yes and no. I think we need to support the events that are happening. And I also think we need to create new events that are diverse and showcase all the talent that is coming out of Spokane. I think there's enough talent here definitely to have a local presence at it, but also bring in some big touring acts. So I think we can get this done, but it probably won't happen for a couple of years. But if anyone's interested in like helping me lead the charge with this, I mean, I'd be game to like take it on and find a way to make it happen. Speaking of music and celebrating music coming out of Spokane, I recently launched the Spokane Sounds 2024 playlist. I truly believe that we're living in somewhat of a musical renaissance here in Spokane. I kind of say that with a little bit of hyperbole, only because, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm very positive about Spokane and what's happening here. And I think we are kind of living in a scene where a ton of great music is coming out of Spokane. And I think there should be a place where everyone can find what some of the best music that's coming out of Spokane in the year. This is a list that's just for music that has come out in 2024. And so I made a playlist, and you can go check it out on Spotify. It's called Spokane Sounds 2024. You can see it in the description of this episode. And because I really want to celebrate that music and have people discover it, because I just don't think there's a great singular place to discover the music that's coming out of Spokane. And I won't say like my list is perfect. I also will say, since I announced the playlist, the day I did that, I kind of put out like DM Spokast on Instagram to submit your favorite music coming out of Spokane. And I got 15 plus messages over a couple days, like saying, hey, can you put me on your list? Can you put me on your list? And I didn't anticipate so many people reaching out. And I very much I need to go through a lot of those submissions still. So bear with me. I'm going to go through those submissions. I also have an ear to the ground of what's going on in the music scene in Spokane. So I still will be curating that myself, but please send me your DMs. If I don't put your song on the playlist, do not be offended. It's because I want to curate this to be a list that is diverse and representative of the music coming out of Spokane. And I also want it to be inclusive of different people. Like the one thing I realized when I was, creating this list is that it is pretty much taken up completely by men. The only song that I had on the list was a song called Toxic that had a local artist Azure on it. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but that was the only representation of a woman on the playlist. And so I was like, I need to have more representation. And so please send me it all. Cause I will try to get it on there. So if your song came out in 2023, I'm just going to keep this as a 2024 list just to kind of keep it organized and based on what is coming out currently. It will be to somewhat of my taste, but I will try to get a little bit of all of genres on there. Right now it is very highly influenced by hip hop and R&B. So I do need to have some more rock and other genres on there, but keep on sending me those songs. I love listening to it. I love knowing what is coming out. Cause when I realized oh my God, there's all of this music coming out of Spokane, and then all these people are now messaging me a new music I need to listen to. I'm just there's so much happening. And that just shows that we have the ability to make music so much more easily now. And that's so cool. I mean, if I was a teenager and I was trying to make music back in the early 2000s, there was a lot you had to get together to make that happen. And in today's world, all you need to have is a computer, basically. I would recommend anyone, if you want to professionally record music, there's a lot of options here in Spokane to do that. The Spokane Downtown Library has a free music studio that you can reserve time. I know I've heard that it's tough to get in there sometimes, but there's that ability. There is Amplified Wax. Jimmy, has his amazing recording studio really close to downtown. Moses Beats has his own studio in his house and you can connect with all these people on Instagram. And then there's a handful of other independent recording studios. And if you know of any of them, please let me know. I'd love to know who else is creating music professionally in Spokane, because I feel like I'm missing a lot of people's names. So, but yeah, the Spokast Sounds playlist on Spotify. It's not on Apple yet. I should probably just put on Apple as well. But go check that out. A lot of good music on there. I'm going to keep on trying to add to it throughout 2024. So yeah, send me those submissions. I will get to them when I can, and I will try to put it on the list if it fits. Then the final and last thing I want to talk about is the Spokane Velocity. So I guess it was about 3 weeks ago now, I had the opportunity to go to the very first ever USL 1 Spokane Velocity match at the One Spokane Stadium. And I have known about this happening for a while now. I also help produce the Spokane Soccer Show. Go listen to that. Benji Wade, who is the host of that, does an amazing job of doing weekly shows talking about the Spokane Velocity team and what's going on with them. And then eventually we'll be adding in the USL Premier Women's Team, Spokane Zephyr FC, which will be amazing when they start their season. I think they start later this year in August. They have a more traditional soccer schedule, meaning they run from like August to I think May, and that works with like the international schedule. But so like I said, I got to go to the very first game. I didn't get season tickets. I want to get season tickets next year, hopefully. But I got this Rumble pack, which basically I get to go to one match a month for the next 8 months. And that one of the games that was included, that was a home opener, and went there. I think it was almost a packed house. It was so much freaking fun. I saw a lot of familiar faces, a lot of people saying like, "Hey, Brennan, how's it going?" Like, got to talk to a lot of people, and it was just a vibe at the One Spokane Stadium, just celebrating soccer, the international sport, and just, and we got our first win. I think it was the final score was 2-1, and I think Spokane fans have a lot to learn about the game of soccer, and there needs to be a lot more chanting, a lot more cheering. It was sometimes a little quiet, but honestly, soccer is one of those sports that like it's hard to always engage in what's going on because it is a slower paced game, but there's always something going on, but that also often can be replaced with chants, singing, and just like all in all, just like a ton of this community. And that's what it felt like. I just was surrounded by like-minded people who wanted to celebrate this new team starting here in Spokane at the One Spokane Stadium. It's my first experience there ever. I never went to a high school game. And I just think we are so lucky that the city decided to put that stadium there, because the voters rejected it. And now I just feel like good thing that the city didn't listen to the voters, because that stadium brings such a vibe to that area, that whole area now, the arena, the podium, and now One Spokane. It's just like a little hub of just a ton of events and sports that are going to be happening in this city. And I see all the events that are coming there now. And I'm just like, I'm amazed that we have this, and that we're getting this 3-day, like I was talking about festivals earlier, we're getting a 3-day comedy festival coming to One Spokane Stadium that's headlined by Kevin Hart, Theo Vaughn, and Tom Segura. Like, it's just, there's a lot happening, and I'm very excited for that stadium, but I'm very excited for professional soccer to be here. It is a sport that I think Spokane can maintain and embrace and celebrate for years to come. And I watch, documentaries like Welcome to Wrexham, and I just feel like Spokane has that community to really embrace a soccer team. Because when you go to this, yes, you're watching a soccer match, but you're also like hanging out with friends and talking to people that you wouldn't normally see, and you get to just experience community on a different level. And that's what I love about sports, is that sports just really brings community together and different minded people into one spot, and we can all celebrate and be on the same side for a sport. And that helps create change. It makes people learn about someone who might be on the other side politically than you, but you can celebrate a sport together and learn about each other. And then like that helps open the doors to different conversations about other things that are going on. And I think sports just has that ability to help create change locally in our community. The Spokane Velocity and soon to be Spokane Zephyr will really help create those conversations and bring us all to the table together. So especially those of us on different sides of the table politically. So go when you can, go experience Spokane Velocity, Spokane Zephyr this year, spring, summer, and take it in, because they need our support. We need to buy tickets, showing our support through social media and liking stuff is great, but it only succeeds if we show up with our money and spend money there and buy beer there and buy tickets, and just really like that's the only way it's going to maintain. Because if we don't show up and don't buy tickets, the club could go away. And I don't want to see that happen, because I think this is something that the Spokane community can really get behind. So go experience Spokane Velocity sometime this year. There isn't a match until April 27th. That's a Saturday. It's at 3 p.m. It's against Central Valley Fuego. Go buy tickets. You can go buy tickets on SpokaneVelocityFC.com. Start there, and then, or go, there's going to be other games that are coming up. So very, very cool that Spokane Velocity here. I had such an amazing time experiencing it in person, and I just got to say, I love it. I love it. I love it. And go listen to Spokane Soccer Show too, if you love all things soccer and Spokane and want to kind of just take a deep dive into it. Benji Wade is killing it with that. And I'm very happy to be able to produce that podcast. So, man, this has been I think my first episode of This is Spokane might be the longest one yet. I'm going to really try to tighten this up and make it better, but please send me your questions in, your recommendations, what you'd like to see on This is Spokane. I really want to try to make this a weekly podcast, but for now it will be released periodically when I feel like there's something for me to talk about. But really, I want to celebrate Spokane and all the things that make it amazing from my perspective, and really just shine a light on the Lilac City. I will say, next week on Monday, if you're listening to this on a Friday or Saturday or Sunday, my first ever group interview with the affiliated crew, Top, Jang the Goon, Kay Gonzalez, the Northwest Kid, all came in the studio, and we all had a really great conversation about what they're doing with affiliated, the new EP they just dropped, and the Spokane music scene in general. It was a great conversation, and those guys and gal are doing great things in the hip hop scene with affiliated, and they're so positive, and I love the music that they're creating, and they're just great humans. So listen to that on Monday, or if you listen to this now and it's past Monday, go listen to it now. Anyways, until next time, I don't have a sign up for This is Spokane yet, but I'll say
Ladies
peace.
and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce myself. Can't take that 9 to 5, but I still look good in a suit and tie. I feel so alive, couldn't kill my vibe even if you tried. We're just boys and girls, trying to change the whole wide world. We'll keep breaking rules, me and my friends, these crazy fools. Cause hey, we're just trying to paint the town tonight. Hey, we ain't these friends of mine, we paint this town outside the lines every night. It's such an amazing sight. Come take a walk on the wild side. It's better here. Can't you tell by looking at me? I'm so alive. That's right. I'm so That's gonna be crazy.